Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What is the most insignificant amount of power you've seen get to someone's head? Part 2. Current Condo HOA board member, 22 consecutive years, seen lots of ass. I'm gonna go against the flow and say that owners can and should remove board members who are too eager for power. There are a lot of condo owners who'll complain about board abuses for hours on end, but they would never give up their time to do the work themselves. For the years when we don't have enough volunteers to fill all the director positions, it's hard to get anyone to take the job. There has never been a close election. Our HOA might be different from many others being talked about here. Since it's an apartment building conversion in a big city, most of the maintenance work isn't split up like it can be with detached homes. Also, there aren't any grounds to argue about, so there aren't any fights over flower beds, trash cans, landscaping, etc. The board also tries to communicate with the owners in a caring way, but it's very hard because the owners have such a wide range of personalities and are often not interested in anything. Knowing that our money isn't being spent by jerks who can't stop shopping is the only real reward I get from being on the board. Also, condo owners, especially new ones, can have false ideas about their rights or even about what it's really like to live in a condo. A complaint about noise is often met with the claim that paying so much money gives a resident the right to blast music at 3 a.m. Some people think that the board's job is to clean up or greet people. People have asked me to vacuum carpets, sign for packages, clear out sinks, and clean up dog vomit. And this kind of cluelessness is nothing compared to how little people know about basic real estate ideas in general. One person insisted that he could sell his deeded garage space separately, and he sent me a copy of his first emails to realtors who were laughing. One idiot said that we didn't need to replace the boiler right away and demanded that we return his share of the designated reserves because he needed his share for a down payment on a new car. Someone else tried to add a balcony to their fire escape. Hello? There have been spoiled brats on the board before, but once they realize they can't just be vice president in charge of my own pet projects, they tend to shut up or leave. The person who decided all of a sudden that we should paint everyone's doors yellow was shocked when we said no and laughed so hard that it made the whole group laugh. Within a year, she sold her apartment for a big loss. What went wrong? I'm still not sure, but this crazy woman called me to demand that her boss be fired. Boss here does not mean her boss. It means the owner of the company. To give you some background, I have a client whose calls we don't get very often because their business is pretty small. To keep costs down, the owner makes sure that everyone who wants to work on a computer knows how to use it. That means that most of the calls we get are about real computer issues. A single man owns the whole business. I've talked to him, and he's a nice guy. Then I got a strange call yesterday. The woman who called is, let's say, expressive. I tried to write things down the way she does them to show you how it went. Still, I haven't written it all down word for word. Not that I'd want to. Me. Help desk, this is really weird. Crazy woman. I fired boss and need you to delete all of his passwords. This is crazy lady. Me. Excuse me, did you just fire boss? Crazy lady. I haven't told him yet, but I want you to delete his passwords so he can't use the computer or get into the building. Me, confused. What's going on, ma'am? For any firing, we need a termination notice from HR. Since he owns the company, that may be too much for him to handle. Crazy lady. He doesn't own anything. That useless jerk just had tow my brother's car out of the parking lot. His behind is off. Delete his codes now before I look for you upstairs. Me sends manager an instant message to listen in. Wait a minute. I can't just log him out over the phone. He owns the business and signs the paychecks after all. Crazy lady. F-U-P, mother effer, you're fired too. Get out of here before I F you up upstairs. Me. You do know that this is a recorded line, right? You might want to take a deep breath. Lots of bad language and threats, crazy lady. Right then, my boss tells me to end the call. My manager tells me he's going to get the recording and send it up right after I hang up the phone. After 30 minutes, I'm just messing around on my computer when I get a call that's transferred to me. Me. Help desk, this is OP. Boss. Hello, OP. This is boss from client. I heard that crazy lady called you today, and I'd like to know what happened. I tell him what the main point of the conversation was, and that my manager should have the recording. Boss. Sorry to say this, but crazy lady has been taken out of the building. That woman made such a scene that we had to call the police. HR's taking care of the rest. Haven't heard what she said to you yet. Me. It's okay. I didn't think she was going to really attack me, but it was clear she was acting somewhat crazy. Boss. Yes, she's now at the police because she made more threats around here. Me. She fired you because you towed her brother's car? What did he have to do with it? Did he work there too? Boss. No, someone's been parking in our lot for a couple of weeks now without leaving a note. Because no one here seemed to own it, I had it towed off our lot where we don't have enough room. I think she might have let him park there so he wouldn't have to pay for it somewhere else and she wasn't reporting the car. Me. Reporting the car? What'd she do there? Boss. Her job was to watch over the front desk, right? Me. You sure? I hope she didn't have a gun on her. Boss. No, but I'm gonna call that agency to talk about how they screen their employees. Me. Wait a minute. How did the front desk security guard think she could fire the business owner? Boss. I could hear him shrug. I don't know. Me. That's right. I'm pretty sure the recording's already on its way to you. Let me know if you need me to do anything else. Boss. Thanks, I'll get in touch. Update. Okay, I've looked into this some more since I posted it. Even though it wasn't in the news, I was able to find the arrest record online. I almost put it online, but that might have been a breach of privacy, which would have been my fault. The client and I are not in the same place at the same time. It's all over the phone. I found her among the people who had been arrested in the city where the client lives. She was arrested for disorderly conduct and criminal threatening, but the charges were later changed to including having drugs that are illegal. And that makes a lot of sense. I ran a small business in South Florida for 4 years as operations manager. I was in charge of everything there. We had to finish a project on 2 vehicles, and I gave that job to a new employee. When I'm done with my work for the day, I go over to see how things are going. He starts yelling at me for not being at the job site to do this or that. He had only been with the company for about a month. Then he turns around and yells at 2 guys I've never seen before, telling them they'll be fired if they don't do the job. I hire everyone. When I asked him where the 2 guys came from, he said that as project manager, he was allowed to hire them. That was the only right he had, I told him. The project only needed 2 people and 3 days of work. I had to go back inside to ask my boss if it was okay to hire them. He laughed and told me to fire everyone. Redditors who got back at the Homeowners Association / Karen Neighbors, how did it go? Part 2. When I walked out of my apartment, I discovered that the manager had slapped a notice on the driver's side window of my girlfriend's car which stated that the vehicle would be towed due to condition. The notice did not contain any other information. She had a couple of minor scratches in the front of her car, but other than that, her car was in good condition. I took a look down the line of parked cars and noticed that almost every other vehicle had the same thing practically glued to the window. There was no further explanation for this matter. I saw that jerk's car and made a mental note of where he parked it. I then proceeded to apply glitter glue to the entire driver's side window of his vehicle, making sure to write condition in a hot pink font in the middle of the window. After that, I never once saw a single notice on the surface of another person's vehicle. My mother had a significant competition with our next-door neighbor, who we will refer to as Cindy. There's a business that my mother operates out of her house, but she's not a member of the HOA board. Because of the fact that the business generates some additional noise, we made sure to discuss the matter with all of our neighbors in the surrounding area before we began operations. There's a post on the HOA board for Cindy. She was very upset with our company because it violated one of the rules of the homeowners association, despite the fact that she did not live in our section of the neighborhood. Cindy threatened to evict you, which probably wouldn't have happened regardless of the rules, despite the fact that it wasn't a rule that you couldn't run a business out of your home. Unfortunately, the minor rule violation was enough for her to carry out her threat. In any case, my mother utilized her network of connections to secure a significant discount on mulch and fences for the entire subdivision, which resulted in her being removed from the board of directors and the minor rule being completely removed. Our company is also doing well. We have a neighbor who is a complete jerk. We relocated from a flat to a house that our children could have a garden around which to play. All was well for the first few weeks, but because children are children, our children's balls kept falling over the fence and into the garden of our neighbors. Due to the fact that our neighbor is elderly, we would send the children to knock on the door in order to retrieve the ball. The ball went over the fence. It's a 3-foot metal chain link fence, so it's not exactly high, and the neighbor walked out into her garden and popped the ball during the time that my children were watching. This happened after the neighbor had been subjected to this behavior on multiple occasions. I began yelling at my children, and as a result, they are now too afraid to play in the garden. The only reason we moved here was to be closer to the children, but now they're afraid to play there. It was yesterday during the storm Eunice that I got my revenge. The food bin belonging to my neighbor, which was a small black bin with an orange lid, blew into my personal front garden. I saw the neighbor's son-in-law trying to get into our front garden to retrieve the bin. I went to the door and shouted, "What the F do you think you're doing in my garden? F off!" I'm still trying to decide whether I should return the bin in pieces. When I was in 2007, I purchased a home in Round Rock, Texas, which was a relatively small town at the time. Allow me to provide some background information. I was born and raised in the hill country of Central Texas, and throughout the entirety of my childhood, there had never been any homeowners associations, HOAs. Certain wealthy neighborhoods had neighborhood associations, which are a very different kind of organization than a homeowners association. In 2001, I enlisted in the military, and by the time I returned in 2006, neighborhood associations were all over the place. The neighborhood in which I grew up now had a homeowners association HOA. My family had relocated to a new neighborhood, and my father had been in a constant state of conflict with his homeowners association HOA. The fact that he constructed a tool shed in his own backyard without obtaining permission, as well as the fact that he parked his car in his driveway rather than in his garage, that kind of thing. Therefore, I am witnessing his ongoing struggle and have been brought up in a society in which your property was your property and no one else's business. I had no desire to be involved in this HOA business. By the way, it is now the year 2007, and I have returned home from the military and am looking to purchase a home. This is my top priority. There are no HOAs. After a few months, I locate a house in a neighborhood that does not have a homeowners association. It was a neighborhood that was relatively new, and it was also a neighborhood that was relatively small. This was something that surprised me. In spite of the fact that it appeared to have a homeowners association HOA, it did not. I move in, fall in love with the location, and then I continue on with my life. I'm having a conversation with my neighbor about homeowners associations, HOAs, one day. As I explained, one of the primary reasons I purchased that house was because it did not have a homeowners association. The person who lives next door to me, who also happens to be one of the first people to move into the neighborhood, tells me, "Oh yeah, we had one of those when they first started building this place." After being taken aback, I inquired about what had transpired with it. At long last, we came to the exciting part. Well, back when there was still only about 20 homes built, there were 2 people who lived in the neighborhood who ran the HOA, he says. They were the 2 people who were in charge of the HOA. To put it simply, they were terrible people and they were constantly harassing the other neighbors about things like grass being too tall and trash cans being visible, as well as other examples of ridiculous behavior. I, along with a few of the other neighbors, decided to look up the HOA bylaws and discovered that we had the ability to hold elections in order to replace the HOA council. We went ahead and held the elections. Although I was elected president of the HOA, a couple of other neighbors were elected to serve in the council. As soon as we took control of the situation, we simply voted to dissolve the HOA. As a result, we do not have one yet. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.